Hey guys, what's up? Back with another video. This time we're going to talk about plyometrics. In the last week I've had two of my online clients email me and say, what about plyometrics? So a lot of people hear this, but we don't actually know what plyometrics really are. So most people think that simple jumping drills are plyometrics. And while those will build your explosiveness, the ability to create power, force rapidly, they're not plyometric. They're jumping, they're hopping. You can call them dynamic, you can call them whatever you want, but they're not actually plyometric. Well, why is that? So plyometrics take advantage of what's called the series elastic component of the stretch shortening cycle. And this is where your muscle and your tendon, mostly where they come together. And what's happening in that is you're taking advantage of that elastic property of the tendon. And in the stretch shortening cycle, what we need is we need to stretch and then we need it to shorten very rapidly. So this is what plyometrics are. Most people think it's just I jump and I jump onto the box, okay? But the problem is there's not a big stretch there. Obviously, we're just jumping. We're propelling ourselves through space. So here's what a real plyometric, shock training, this is what it actually is. We want to take a box of some sort. We want to go off of that box so we get that eccentric loading. There's a stretch when we hit at the amortization phase, the difference between the drop and the jump. And then, if we've done it correctly, if we have enough stiffness in the tendon, if we've gotten off the ground fast enough with a very forceful concentric contraction, we will couple the stretch from the eccentric, from the land, with the shortening of the concentric, and we theoretically, and in practicality if you do it correctly, can jump onto a higher box than we could off the ground. That's what an actual plyometric is. We need the eccentric coupled, amortized with the concentric to create more total force in the unit. So when we look at this, things like jump rope, running, those are plyometric in some level. You know, simple hurdle hops, every time we're going to get an eccentric and we can couple it to make it over the hurdle. The problem with plyometrics usually becomes that they're misprogrammed. People do them with a lot of fatigue in the system, or they do them for very high reps. And that series elastic component in the tendon, it usually can last at maximal about 9 seconds. Most research says your really good stiff takeoffs, you maybe get 4 seconds total in it. And so what happens is you'll see people degrade their technique over time. They'll start to land with a lot of knee flexion, a lot of hip flexion, ankle flexion. They're kind of swamping every jump. They're taking a lot of time between them. They're on the ground for a long time and they're muscling it up. At that point, you're not really actually building anything dynamic. You're muscling the weight up. You might be getting it off the ground, but that's because your force output is good. It's not because you're using the series elastic component of the stretch shortening cycle and doing a plyometric. So if you're going to use them, you always have to remember very minimal fatigue, quality over quantity every time. Now here's personally why I don't use them often with my clients. They don't need them. So we always go, why no Plyos? If we were to train just strength, maximal strength is the limiter for all physical qualities. If you can't create that much force, you obviously can't create that force quickly, which is what power would be. So if we say I have a 100% RM and I can produce 50% power, okay? And we just do power training, it's true. You could increase the amount of power, i.e. the amount of water in the cup, and get closer to your maximal limiter. So now you have a 25% increase and you're at 75%, you're more powerful. But what if we take somebody that's newer to training, they're not super strong, or they don't have a game to play. They don't need to. They can train for a while. And we take that same person and we just get them stronger, but they maintain the same percentage of power output, but they get stronger. They can produce more force. Well, they will get more powerful inherently. So as we take that same person and we increase their maximal strength, we focus on strength training, and we get them 20% stronger. So we've gone from 100 whatever to 120 whatever. If the same 50% of this 120, they would be 10% stronger, more powerful versus their starting place. Their absolute power had gone up. So that's all we need to do with most trainees. Just get them stronger. Now, if you have an athlete or you're coming up into a competitive season, that's when you would want to unleash plyometrics, because the training effect, while it can be very, very powerful, it's also rather limited. You're not going to be able to consistently train plyos all the time throughout the entire year and get a huge training effect on them consistently, because remember, they're always going to be limited by your top end strength, and they're also going to be limited by what your tendons can take. It's very common when people start to train plyometrics, even jumping drills, and they can get good force output, they start to get tendon issues. And that typically is just a matter of either A, you started them too early, they're not strong enough, they can't handle the eccentric loading, or B, the volume is way, way too high. Always full rest, always quality over quantity, very low volumes, do them correctly, and they can be an absolutely powerful training tool.